The TLDR of why Hoyoverse will never let us skip all dialogue at once is number 1, it means more playtime from every player through watching, reading, and interacting with unskippable dialogue, which is cheaper to develop than the same playtime with events. And number 2, it's more likely that more of the spenders in the game are among the casual players than the die-hard ones. So what does this mean? Hoyo will likely never give us the ever so wanted skip all dialogue button because of what they've decided to do with Genshin and what they've turned it into. In the early days of Genshin, it was immediately obvious to us that this was an open world game with what felt like endless amounts of things to do, from the main story quest to random world quests you can find out in the wilderness from random NPCs, and chests and puzzles to discover and wrap our heads around. And on top of that, Hoyo is legendary for being very consistent with Genshin Impact version updates, and with every version update to this day comes in-game events. In the earlier days of Genshin, these events varied from literally just giving an NPC items you picked up in the overworld, such as sweet flowers, mint, and the occasional fowl from killing Timmy's pigeons. I mean, some other bird that aren't Timmy's pigeons. And get your rewards, to combat events that often helped us find out which one would break first, our mice and keyboards or our sanity. And some of these events sometimes took hours to complete, especially because they allowed the use of food, which meant other than retrying dozens to even hundreds of times, you sometimes had to go out and actually farm random stuff that you would otherwise never pick up so you could make some food to help you out. And for good reason. Some of the older combat events were actually harder than the currently only form of endgame we have in Genshin, the Spiral Abyss. Yes, some of the older combat events were actually quite a lot harder than Abyss. So back in the day, most of our playtime in Genshin was actually on the events themselves. Nowadays, events seem to be very laid back and chill and super easy, some even just downright brain dead easy to do. There are many possible reasons for this. Seeing as Hoyo is a business, of course they need to make money to keep the lights on and keep the party going. Doing that could range anywhere from finding ways to make more money, or to reduce spending, or keeping a good balance of both. Genshin is already more than 2 years old at this point, so Hoyo has had plenty of time to collect data on things like which demographic of players they earn the most from, and judging by the type of content we've been given for a good long while now, it's clear to see which demographic of players most of this comes from. It could likely vary from the really young players who are given cash gifts from their relatives during their holidays and decide to invest in Genshin Impact stock, buy WELKINs and Genesis crystals with it, to the casual working adult who really only plays a few minutes a week, or maybe even just comes back whenever there are new characters in the game to pull for them, and doesn't really care about much else in the game. And the occasional mega whale who pulls on everyone and everything there is to pull for in the game. In these players' cases, some of these players might not even care about the Primo Gems from events, seeing as they're likely just able to buy Primo Gems for wishes. Hence, another reason why high difficulty combat events that mostly only Mega Whales and the most diehard of F2Ps can fully clear with little to no difficulty aren't necessary anymore and may only be causing difficulty for the casual player base. Hoyo is trying to please where more of the money is coming from. I'm not saying this to say that Hoyo is greedy or anything, it's just a normal part of business. You can't pay game devs, concept artists, 3D modelers, texture artists, composers, musicians, and potentially hundreds and hundreds of other people that work on the entire pipeline of game development with just pleases and thank yous. So no matter how disappointed I am that I'll never have anywhere to test out the characters that I've spent years building, I still understand why Hoyo has decided to take Genshin in this direction. Genshin Impact operates on FOMO, fear of missing out. And FOMO only works in the long term if the rabbit chasing the carrot can actually get the carrot after chasing it around for a bit. After that, Hoyo hangs down another carrot for us to chase around, because if the rabbit is never able to catch the carrot, sooner or later, it'll realize it's impossible and just not even try. And you bet Hoyo is in it for the long term. Especially with what seems to be their grand vision for Genshin Impact. You see, Genshin is a really high quality and high effort game, especially for what it is. A gacha game, which should tell us that Hoyo had and still has big dreams for Genshin Impact. So they definitely want to keep this FOMO train going, and that includes giving up on endgame if that's what it takes. So why am I talking about FOMO all of a sudden? Earlier, I was talking about what types of players are likely earning for Hoyo the most, and some of them are likely to be the working adults who barely even log in due to many possible reasons, such as work or having to take care of their families. So imagine this type of player logs into Genshin, tries doing an event and realizes how much time it's going to take to complete it and just thinks, I don't have time for this, and just closes Genshin. especially because the time it takes to complete certain events may be very different for different people, with skill level and device being used being possible factors to this. Thus, giving us casual and easy events was the practical thing to do to allow the rabbit chasing the carrot to actually be able to catch the carrot, so that the next time they hang another carrot in front of the rabbit goes after it again. But of course, things aren't always that simple. Hoyo can't just give us easy events and call it a day. Seeing as Hoyo is a private company, it isn't publicly traded, so it's likely wherever their initial funding came from, they probably managed to find investors of their own, and of course to keep such investors from worrying that Hoyo's biggest cash cow dies off so soon, before they even get their initial investment back or get a return on their investment, they need assurance that Genshin Impact is alive and well. Other than straight up income, another way to see if an online video game is doing well is with internal statistics, such as number of active users, an average playtime, or how long each player is logged in and playing. And of course, Hoyo would likely want these to be as high as possible, right? But if that's the case, why are they giving us easier events that take less time to complete? Like we mentioned earlier, they don't want the rabbit to give up chasing the carrot. So one way they're able to make up for reduced time each player is logged in because of easier events is by making each player stay logged in longer by, title of the video, never giving us the skip all dialogue button in world quests, event quests, and archon quests, thus making it so players are logged into the game and playing, but compared to events, going through dialogue in quests doesn't take as much attention, hence why they gave us the autoplay feature a while back. But they also don't want players to just sit back and go completely AFK for 2 hours while the dialogue autoplays. They still need players to have at least some interaction in the game, and that's why every now and again, we need to select dialogue choices or move to another location, or do something so mundane as take 3 steps to the left before putting us back in dialogue skipping simulator. Another benefit to this approach is that they give us quote-unquote more content in the form of more hours of content to consume, but with less effort because it's literally just released more of the initial script written as part of the final script to have longer dialogue, but at the same time, more casual events need less playtesting as they aren't as competitive or require less optimization as hardcore and difficult events. So going back to finances, they earn more for each dollar they spend on development while expenses go down. It's just a win-win-win. Being completely AFK is also a bad thing for an online video game because that's another statistic that someone could look at and think whether a game is still active or not. So they still need the occasional player input to at least keep player interaction up, but with minimal effort, so that the rabbit doesn't give up on chasing the carrot. So TLDR on why Hoyoverse will never give us a skip all dialogue button. They need to make events faster to clear and keep the rabbit from giving up on chasing the carrot by letting it have the carrot with minimum effort, so the next time they hang another carrot, the rabbit chases it. But faster events means less time that the players are logged in and actually playing the game, so they make up for it by giving us longer dialogue we can't skip, but they still want us to interact with the game, so we still have to occasionally pick a dialogue or do certain tasks to continue the story. Increasing playtime with the story instead of events means less effort and expense just by writing longer scripts and doing a few more animations, and less playtesting and optimizations on hardcore events that need to be optimized is a much more efficient use of resources and likely yields more rewards than the other way around.